Hello, everyone. I'm Andrea Colamedici. This interview is done during the activities of Arts for Future Festival, and today we are with John Gaeta, inventor, innovator, and Academy Award-winning designer. He is best known for his work on the original Matrix trilogy, and these approaches foreshadowed today's XR platform like virtual reality, mixed reality, holo cinema. And so let's start with the first question. That is, how are you, John? And thank you for being here.
I am wonderful. Thank you very much for inviting me. I wish I was with you guys in Florence. I love that city, and I love Italy as well. So, but happy to be here in spirit and happy to talk to you.
Yeah. And in this dialogue, we will talk about the metaverse, or more precisely, special web. That is a very broad concept that lends itself to numerous definitions, some of which consider it already active, while others see it as a process still in the making. But what is the metaverse today and what it was yesterday? Suppose that we don't know exactly what we will be tomorrow.
Exactly. It's hard to exactly define something that's emerging, that's coming together. The internet was one of those things. Before the internet, a theory, something that was mostly part of science fiction writing, and across a decade or so, it began to come together, and now it's part of the fabric of our lives. So the metaverse is going to be similar, but it will be different. It will certainly, comprise our digital lives in ways that are more transformative than today. But it's not possible to really know until some gone by.
Yeah, I'm thinking about a wonderful word in Greek that is pharmakon, that Plato used it in one of his dialogues, that is Phaedrus, and it designates both a poison and a medicine. Do you think that maybe metaverse could be that, something in the same time, poison and medicine?
Yes, absolutely. All of these new mediums are that, aren't they? Right? Social media, it connects people, but it also divides people. Television was supposed to be the great educator in the beginning, right? And it also fills hours with nothingness and noise, right? So with all of these new mediums, caution, and but they will provide new platforms for expression, for creative expression, for inspirational new forms of experience, for transformative education. All of those things will also be part of it, but one needs to go with caution and understand, that all of that is likely to happen.
Yeah, thank you. And listening to you, I think that we have this, a smartphone, and it looks like there are one of the worst things that ever happened to us, because they broke all of our social benefits. But in some ways, they are wonderful, because I think that they are a perfect set of all the ways we're not to bring our technology efforts. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, yes, it's true. I'm the same, right? It's a super tool from a science fiction story, but it also, yes, has caused quite a lot of disruption with just traditional relationships, right? It's dividing our attentions away from people, but at the same time, it is a method to bring people together. So it's good and bad, and we need to, adults need to really uh, be able to manage, um, you know, their the well-being of their relationships beyond the phone. It's your
Yeah.
responsibility to do that. So, um, the metaverse will be inviting, and it will. I don't believe it's going to be as exactly as people might think. For example, what we see in movies, people lost inside virtual worlds for their whole life. No, I don't really think it happen. And um, it's to be just virtual reality. Some people think that, oh, the metaverse is just something that, like, you go inside, like Ready Player One. It's game like, and the truth of the matter is, it's a lot more. It's a lot more nuanced than that. And if you want, we can talk about some of that.
Yeah, yeah. And about this, I think that we had to make a speech about the freedom thing. So in these years, we learned to willfully giving up freedom, and it was good. It was for a good reason, as we know. But how can we learn to free ourselves through new technologies and not to chain ourselves?
These are good questions. The the same well, since you asked, right, the same things that take freedom away before the metaverse will be in the metaverse too. So whether that's you know how would I put it, economic, corporate sort of control over the medium, whether that's rules and laws, perhaps government control. These same things that sometimes provide benefit, also provide restrictions in freedom, and they will, as they have for a very long time, will seek to install themselves as gatekeepers of the things that you do, and the information you get to see. And there is, of course, always an opportunity when a new medium begins. When the internet began, it was also thought that there was a potential for openness and more liberty in what you could access. And over time, commercial interests and other interests in some countries, it's actually control of freedom of information. Uh, it's something that we could try to improve upon in the years coming. Um, but it is not something that will happen unless people demand it and actively build it to be open, to be free.
Yeah, yeah. And a peculiar way to see it, your work, is thinking about it about just like it was a master of layers, the art of layers, or something like that. And in this way of thinking, what is the role of how can we learn to see the relationship between layers? How can we emphasize the layers that exist outside us? Starting from the layer zero, that is the word, how can we learn to help ourselves to discover and to how to say, harmonize all these layers that we built?
These are okay. This is a great question. First, let's talk about layers just for a moment. What it can mean different things to different people, but let me talk about that for a second. So, th- it's difficult to imagine something that's coming if you haven't experienced it directly. And in the past, the last 7, 8, 9 years, as virtual reality started to actually come together, the beginning of that, the capability to actually, render something very realistic that felt good, not sickening. It was very, and was then, as a result, something could be made that was incredible, something that one could never have imagined if I described it in words, right? Many times I've been in discussions trying to describe to people what virtual reality is like or what a particular experience is like, and it never ever works to do what one experience inside the headset could do, right? You have to experience it to understand it, right? So, however, virtual reality is a little different than mixed reality. Mixed reality is the ability of putting virtual content over the top of the real world, and that content, does not have to be entertainment. It can be any subject that one could imagine, from enterprise and economic, from scientific, information and simulation, to educational, to tourism. All sorts of subjects, right, could be the subject of a layer of virtual content that sits on top of the real world and will at some point have interplay with the real world. So the the real world is, of course, not a static object. It's a vibrant, dynamic space with moving people and weather and changes of condition. And as we become ever more advanced in sensing, right, the dynamic nature of reality, like what all of that may be, as we become able to measure it through technology and sense it, we will be able to use that information to make the virtual content interact with the real world or have interplay with the real world in sophisticated ways, down to, for example, the ability of virtual content of any sort having awareness of people and people having awareness of virtual content. So mixed reality gives us this opportunity to see the mixture of the real world and this virtual content, and at some point, intelligent virtual content that will be able to interact dynamically with you. So all of this sort of leads to this idea of because we don't expect to have virtual content that everyone wants to make in one space at one time. Confusing. I see. Am I back? Can you hear me?
Now you're back. Yes.
Andrea?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yes. Well, this New York, Florence. So, but to continue, we don't want all of this virtual content that everybody is making in your view at the same time. It would be just a confusing mess of many, many things. There could be thousands, if not millions, of people making virtual content and putting it into your view. And when I say view, I mean you're wearing some glasses, that enables you to see this, right? So what will happen is, just like channels on a television, there will be a channel for a subject, or perhaps a person will have a channel, like in a social media or YouTube. but there will be thousands, if not millions, of channels that are different subjects of mixed reality that will be on the world. Uh, the word layer is similar, it's the same thing as a channel, right? So here's a layer of content on the world. And if I don't want this layer, let's say it's the tourism layer, and I want to go to educational layer, then I, will have an interface that'll allow me to change that. And it literally will be like the internet, countless layers. And since I mentioned that word again, whether we think this is good or not, essentially the internet itself will start becoming present in a spatial way. And that will take different forms. So consider, think of it like a spectrum. There's right now we see the internet on our phones and on our computer laptops. It's a flat, 2D media like all other traditional 2D media. There will be a version where, like an online game, the internet will be something you can move into spatially, and more websites will be kind of like explorable, and but still on your computer, still flat. But then there will be a thing which is referred to now as WebXR. I'm not sure how much everyone in the audience knows of these different things, but WebXR will be, okay, I'll put on a VR headset, and now I'll be inside these spatial places, but they will essentially be destinations. There'll be addresses, URLs, basically. So we will go to a web address, and there will be a spatial place, right, of any subject, right, commercial, entertainment, anything, right? So there'll be a VR version of the internet, and it's already begun. People are already working on this. And there will additionally be a version where, I walk on the street, and there is literally a URL that I can go to, and that URL is literally a layer, right, that's sitting on top of the real world. So you can literally be inside the internet as a mixed reality layer, walking in any place in the world. Now, how long will it take for this to happen? Well, that's kind of goes back to your first question. It is probably, across the next 10 years, right, that this will be implemented. What's happening now is a lot of important technology building blocks are finally arriving and starting to make it possible to do some of this stuff. It is possible to have many people connected to the same experience. That was hard 5 years ago. Now it is possible. It is possible to, have content register over large areas, where 5 years ago that was difficult. It is possible to have, people, for example, in virtual reality or in a online computer game, interact with people who are in mixed reality glasses somewhere else. That's possible today. So these building blocks are coming together, and really, it's what drives anything. In the Western world, often it's markets, right? Like the tech. It's often the case that just because something is technologically able to happen does not mean that it's going to happen yet, right? The sort of capitalist world needs to see, right, that it's something that people want and desire, and then they will start building the pipes, right, and making it possible. There's a lot of things that are left to figure out, so I'll circle back to your another early question. What is the metaverse? The metaverse is not just I'm in virtual reality like Ready Player One. The metaverse is not just I'm in mixed reality, like we were just talking about. Um, it's not. It's much more than that. It includes uh, all the things that exist, right? IoT, all of the things can essentially uh, become included. I'm allowing. Am I back?
Now you're back, yes.
Am I back? This it's always whenever you do a video conference, you always know the distance you are to the metaverse, right? Based on this sort of stuff, right? We're like, I do meetings all week long, and we discuss, these building blocks, right? And we're all moving and converging, and we're doing it on these video calls, right? And when they come and they go, they always let you know, right, that there's a lot of work to do. But to finish the point, the metaverse is going to comprise all of the digital, all of the digital beacons, right, that exist in our cities today, all of the smart city infrastructure, all of the sensing necessary for autonomous transportation, all of those sorts of things, right? All of the world sensing that we're starting to do, all of the digitization that we are starting to do, all of the buildings that we scan, all the architects, have been doing, all of the maps, the Google Maps and the Apple Maps, and all of the online games, right? It's the internet becoming spatialized. And all of those things are going to converge and come together across the decade or decades. I mean, this is going to just continue, right? Just continue and continue. Virtual reality and mixed reality and your phones and your mobile devices, you should consider those just windows onto the emerging metaverse. And some people call it the spatial web, right? So all windows upon the spatial web, with all of those building blocks and many more, right, will comprise the metaverse.
Yeah, a beautiful metaphor, and a beautiful image that is not just a metaphor. It's really, we're talking really about windows. And
Yes.
Listening to you, I think that we can't predict what happened in the real world, in the space in the real world. And it's just like we are trying to create a ground of unpredictable in which we can land the more or less predictable. We need a new unpredictable. It's something like that.
Well, it will be a little unpredictable. There is no doubt, because we never quite know how society is going to, behave with these new platforms of communication and expression. It seems to change the way we are each time. Social media, I mean, 10 or 15 years ago, we would have never sort of been able to see ourselves, in this fluid communication in all these directions. It's changed, the way that people view their futures. It changes the way that they act with other people, and for good and for bad. I mean, there is both, but our politics, right? Our choices, right? How these things are being made are being shaped by these mediums. So, boldly we go. We don't know yet. There will be. I mean, there already is. I mean, for example, the rise of machine learning and artificial intelligence intertwined with this media and human communication that will as well play a big role that is not clear yet. It can unleash creativity, but it can also be used for harm, as we know. So again, we need to understand that. One thing that I think would be worth the humans to focus on would be to use AI to see AI. And what I mean by that is that, very quickly, a regular human being like all of us can become quite overwhelmed by data and by the invisible things that are going on in the internet and other kinds of digital media, because we can't see algorithms, we can't understand what's underneath the surface. We don't know when there might be something harmful coming towards us. And what I think would be worthwhile would be to essentially develop a sixth sense for ourselves, so that we can see and be, today you might describe it as, laws that require, companies to explain that they're tracking you or invading your privacy. And these are like, these are like boxes that you check off, like, yes, no, don't take my info. But they're not really, those are not solutions to being able to see the unseen in the internet. And what I worthwhile as we go into the metaverse would be to see what's behind the curtain all the time. Whether those are AI sort of entities that are in service to other things, corporations, perhaps governments, perhaps other things that we don't know about, and being able to see that clearly, like having a new type of vision, and add that each and every person be sort of equipped, with their unconditionally beneficial eyes, as they go into the metaverse. These we could potentially try to get some of this right. And the whole discussion about an open metaverse really, while sometimes seems utopian and difficult to really manage, because it's sort of, by necessity, things do need to be centralized sometimes, right? Decentralization is absolutely a way to dilute the power and manipulation of the few powerful companies. However, it is hard to do in practicality sometimes to get things to function. So it's going to be a hybrid, but regardless of where things end up, people need to demand and build an ability to have awareness of what is surrounding us in our digital lives, because the digital life is about to become the physical life. It's about to overlap. It's these layers. They will be one and the same. They will be occupying the same spaces. So we need to be prepared for that in many ways.
Maybe now we have the opportunity to rethink creativity and productivity. In this moment, we are not just living a new world, but we are living a new us. And so maybe can grow up a new creativity, a new way for the production.
Yes, I suppose that I believe that there will be a greater appreciation of reality and a value applied to that will be different than what is soon to be possible in with the potential blending of human imagination and artificial intelligence. What I think that we're on the verge of is being able to create worlds with words, for example. Just a few words could potentially generate a world that one could step inside. That's incredibly powerful. Good. Well, is it better than making the world by hand? That's hard to say. I do think, though, that there will be solutions to problems that we have felt for many years were unsolvable. I do think that there will be a benefit to human beings that will, potentially create, for example, means for people to sustain a lifestyle or an economy that in places that they never could before, or they always struggled. There will be ways for people to come together and connect with one another, and hopefully, reduce, the separation that we see sometimes between people. AI is going to amplify human beings, whether we like it or not. AI is going to make it possible for people to access very, very complex information and command machines to make things on their behalf. And so we'll see solutions to problems happen in ways we've never seen before, but we will also see new problems, right? We'll see humans unleashing AI and creating whole new problems that we never imagined. So it will be both. But I am going to remain optimistic. I think that we will come to believe that the metaverse, along with the support of AI and machine learning, will unleash a new renaissance, a different kind of renaissance, and that the revelation and revolution that occurred during the first Renaissance, whereby we started to understand the natural world being the same as us, that atoms are atoms, and that all things in nature were, in a sense, equal in that particular way. There will be a version of that in the metaverse too, right? That all things are bits, right? Regardless of where they're coming from. So if the bits are human made or AI made or some hybrid, they'll be part of the same sort of new nature, right? The new nature of the metaverse. And it will be, in a sense, its own kind of renaissance. And yes, I think there will be evolution, right, of all sorts of thought, and who's to say where it will lead us?
Surely we will live. Surely we will live in interesting times. This is sure.
Yeah. And then at the end of the, take off your glasses, turn off your machines, and have a nice meal and a glass of wine, and remember what it's like to be a simple person, because that is going to become suddenly the most valuable thing in one's life at a certain point. Just that, the simplicity of that. So keep that perspective.
Thank you, John Gaeta, for being with us in Arts for Future Festival.
It was a pleasure to talk to you, and pleasure to be here with everybody. Thank you.
You're welcome.